Good morning, everyone. My name is Malachi Battle, and I am back with another episode with WealthWise Live. This episode today that we're doing is called Mind Over Money, and our guest today is John Thompson III. He's a financial expert, entrepreneur, and author, and I'm incredibly excited to have him here today, and I'll give him the floor to share some information about himself, introduce himself.
Hey, thanks, Malachi. Great to be here with you, and hello to everyone out there that's tuning in. And Malachi, man, I'm a big fan of the show, so congrats on the progress you made over the time that this show's been in effect. It's great to see you doing meaningful work, man.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. And so, last month we talked about building assets and particularly real estate. And this month, though, we're going to focus on something that's a little bit more foundational, which will be the mindset. That's why this episode is called Mind Over Money. And the purpose of that is not about ignoring money, but it's about understanding the decisions that begin in the mind. And so with that being said, I'd like to start with your background. So can you share a little bit about, where you grew up, your education, and what shaped your interests early on?
Yeah, absolutely. So grew up originally from Pittsburgh, so go Steelers. And undergrad, I went to University of Pittsburgh and studied electrical engineering, and then grad school went to Penn State and got an MBA. And so, I would say my early journey was really I would say formed based on working in I was actually studying engineering school, and so was with the National Society of Black Engineers, and that was a part of my journey that really formed my foundation as it relates to leadership. And those themes that I learned there really carried those forward into my days in corporate. Spent 25 years working in corporate in a number of different businesses, really transitioning from operations into sales and sales leadership. And then a couple of years ago, made the decision to step outside of the corporate world and launch my financial planning practice. And then also I have a coaching company as well, Team ACES, where we help individuals align to what I call the ACES pillars of success: your attitude, connection, empowerment, and strength. And those are themes that are integral in my book, Stack Your Deck, as well. So I would say the journey has really been aligned to meaning, purpose, and helping individuals really create their legacy. So love the work that I do and love having conversations like this. So yeah, that's I would say that's a little bit about me. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't share personally, married to my wife, Shawit. We've been married for close to 18 years and got two beautiful, beautiful, beautiful daughters. And, my oldest daughter is a teenager, and my youngest, she's very close to being a teenager. And she's pretty much the one that runs the house. So for those of you that are girl dads, I salute you. Proud girl dad myself. So yeah, that's what it's all about, man.
That's funny. Yeah, that's awesome. I have a lot of sisters myself, so I understand that all too well. But very cool. As far as your education, going to get that MBA, those are not easy things to do. And then you said you spent 25 years in corporate America, and then you made that leap a couple of years ago. What would you say prompted that leap? What drove you to make that leap?
Yeah, I like to say it really from ambition to meaning. So, when I was early in my career, it was really all about how do I chart a path towards success. And, I was highly ambitious and driven to succeed. And I would say over the course of that journey, I noticed a transition that I wanted to bring more meaning into my life. And so, and not just meaning into my life, but meaning into the lives of others. And so that's really what prompted the transition. I really wanted to align my life toward helping others build meaningful lives. And, I love this idea that Zig Ziglar said. He says, if you help others get what they want in life, you'll get what you want in life, right? And so that was really what I would say grounded my decision to, hey, let's maybe leave the comfort and convenience that are in the corporate world toward more of a life of meaning and purpose, and helping individuals really align with their full potential. So that's what I do every day.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely awesome, and really not too different from why I started WealthWise
Mm-hmm.
Live. The goal was to learn about financial literacy, but if I can help people along the way learn more about financial
Mm-hmm.
literacy, then I can do some good. And so that's awesome. I also think that when it comes to business, you got to have a reason, and or it won't last. So I think that that's really awesome. So now shifting a little bit into your book, I see it in the back and I see the pen. I like that. That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
But your book,
Sir, yes, sir.
Stack Your Deck, it comes from, a really personal story. But I like to know, when did you get the idea that, hey, like, I'm gonna write a book? I feel like that's a big moment for
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people. It takes time. You got to get an editor.
Mm-hmm.
It can take a long time, right? So when did that idea come about?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been an avid reader. I believe, leaders are readers. And so, over the years, I've enjoyed many books. I've always challenged myself to read a book a month and listen to a book a month. And so, over that time, I think I was formulating the ideas of, hey, one of these days, wouldn't it be nice for my words to impact and shape others' lives? And so that's really what started the idea. And so then when I was doing corporate workshops, I would often bring other books and talk about other individuals' principles and themes. And then I, kind of took a step back, and I was challenged by many individuals that were closest to me. I remember a conversation with my sister, and, she said, hey, why don't you actually write your own book?
Yeah,
And,
wow.
and I think it's always natural. You may think like, well, who's going to read my book? But, I always say, to change the world, you gotta start with one individual and do for one what you wish you can do for many. And so if there's one reader that takes away some gems behind the book, and it helps them change their life or impact their life, then I'm very happy behind that. And so yeah, so it was really just, I always had the ideas of, hey, let me capture my ideas and share those with others. And then it was really just taking the time to sit down and put pen to paper. And there's a good thought of, hey, great books aren't written, they're really built. And so I think it aligned with my engineering background, because you do have a lot of different themes that you're writing about, and then in the end you start putting those themes together and building it into the masterpiece that it is. And I'll call my book a masterpiece because it's out of all the books I've read, it's my favorite book. So hopefully others will enjoy it as well.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure they will. And you mentioned engineering, and so I wanted to touch on that a little bit because I think that's important. When I shared, your about you to my audience, I gave a little fun fact that you were a NSBE
Mm,
president, and you actually led your chapter to chapter of the year, and that we're both
mm-hmm.
previously NSBE presidents.
Yeah.
And so, if you could comment a little bit about that, but also how that has influenced, your book a little bit more and what you do today.
Yeah, look, before it was the ACES pin, it was the NSBE pin, and
Yeah.
I used to wear that pin with pride when I was in college. And I still look. The mission of NSBE is to increase the number of culturally responsible Black engineers who excel academically, succeed professionally, and positively impact the community. And
Okay.
so, look, I remember those words because I've lived those words, and they stay true to my heart. And so it's great to see the work that you're continuing to do in NSBE, and I'm proud to speak to NSBE chapters as well. And so. But when I think back to those early days in engineering and that time in NSBE at the University of Pittsburgh, we were still, trying to figure things out. We were focused naturally on academic excellence. But I think what NSBE helped me really understand is there's much more to life than just studying and getting good grades. You want to succeed professionally. And so it was just very natural that not only did I need to excel academically, but I also needed to prioritize how I make sure that I'm succeeding professionally and building the right connections. But then to take it a step further, there was a meaning and purpose behind all of it because it was all about impacting the community. And so I think those three pillars really helped me get grounded on what was very important in life and how do I elevate to my highest potential. So those early days, and I always say, look, if you can, when you're in student leadership, whether it's NSBE or business association or whatever organization you're a part of, maybe a business fraternity or sorority, if you can be in a leadership position there and lead others from a place of influence, because you're not paying those individuals salary, You're leading them based on setting out a strategy,
Very true.
helping them understand how they align to that strategy, and then bring individuals together toward a common purpose, right? And then excelling and achieving the mission. And so to be able to do those things at an early age, and then to see the heights that we rose to that you had mentioned. We were National Chapter of the Year out of 350 plus chapters across the country. It was there was nothing like it, right? And so I think that just helped me then build such a strong foundation to then really leapfrog into the corporate and build that corporate transition. So that's really what I would say started it all, and then how I continue to build on that legacy.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely awesome. I think it's definitely a testament to your leadership, capabilities and being able to connect with people, because you're right. You're not paying anybody. Everybody is there for the heart of it, the love of it. So being able to develop the skills to work with people to make a better outcome is a very powerful skill. So I can only imagine if you put some motivation being money behind it, you do a lot better, in seeing.
That's right. And what I love, maybe to double click there, Malachi, what I loved about that time, there was a great, I would say, a theme that I carried with me in school. It was this idea of, hey, the greatest accomplishments occur when no one cares who gets credit for them. And I remember it being at the university. My whole goal, was for our NSBE chapter to have a strong footprint and to be known on campus. And I recognized that it was far more than just me and, leading the organization. The team that we were, that I was a part of, and the leaders, and seeing them rise to the challenge and rise to, their best potential. It was just something special. And so then, you see those themes naturally carry on into corporate and, and throughout the course of a career. But it really does come to this idea of how do you bring everyone together and then align to a common purpose, and then recognize the greatness in each individual and help them tap into that greatness.
Yeah. And as time has passed, now you have developed your own framework, right, in your book. And it comes from a very personal story, not just about business or money, but about your grandmother and how she shaped, the way you think about life and your opportunities. Can you share how that moment became the foundation of your book, and really how it led you to create your own ACES pillars as a framework, for just life in general, life and business?
Yeah, Grandma was she was larger than life. She was 4'11" and a half, and she always she took pride in that half inch too. You couldn't say she was 4'11", right? She's 4'11" and a half, but as I mentioned, she was larger than life individual. And when my younger sister Elise Bowers and we were growing up, maybe 8 years old, and she was 6, and we were going to spend the night at Grandma's house. And at that time, when you're going to Grandma's house and you're excited to go there to spend the night, Grandma taught us how to play cards. And when you play cards with Grandma, you might think maybe you're playing like Uno or Concentration or Go Fish, but Grandma taught us how to play poker. And not just any poker, but like we were playing poker for money. And so Grandma would call as we were getting ready to go out the door, and she would call out, bring your dimes. And so we're like bringing our bags of dimes there to Grandma's house to play poker. And at the end of the night, like Grandma took no mercy on us and had no problem going to bed with all of our dimes. And so we're like, come on, Grandma, really, you're taking all of our dimes to bed. And she would gladly, take those. And then, hey, her message is, hey, step your game up, come on with it next time. Right. Yeah. And so, but what I really learned from Grandma, a couple of things. Number one, I learned the power of, just competing and how to win and lose gracefully. Right. And so I learned those themes, but I also just learned this idea of, when you were dealt a hand of aces, I felt like, you had an advantage. And it was like I couldn't even hold my emotions in. Like when I saw the hand of aces, like there was no poker face there. It was like, look, I'm going to win this game, right? Because my deck is stacked. But then what I started to realize is, it's not just when you have aces that your deck is stacked, but you can stack your deck yourself. You can actually stack your deck through intention. And so that's what, I learned from Grandma is, it's not the cards you're dealt, but it's how you play your hand. And that's what's key. And so those themes are still bringing value to this day, namely this idea of, I call it the ACES pillars of success, which is the ace of spades, that's the attitude, the ace of clubs, that's connection, the ace of hearts, that's empowerment, and then the ace of diamonds, that's strength. And so together, you have a stacked deck and you can conquer all that life throws in front of you.
Yeah, so let's dive a little deeper into those, because in your book you talk about these in a lot more detail. So I want to start with the A in ACES, attitude, the ace of spades. So how did you learn to own your mindset when you were early in your career and not necessarily sure if you were making the right moves?
Yeah, I mean, I can go in many different directions with respect to attitude. I do find that it's front and center. I mean, that is, I often get asked the question of, hey, what's the most important ace? And I feel that the attitude pillar drives all the others. And it really came to me when I was early in my career. I was 25 years old and, fresh out of college. I was then in grad school. I was going to grad school full time. I was working full time in corporate. I was the president of the employee resource group at my company. And so I was a high flying young individual that was looking to, really make a mark in the world. And all the cards and all the balls that I had in the air collapsed and I experienced burnout. And I had to take a 6-month leave of absence from work. I was 25 years old. And this was a time when, burnout by definition wasn't very common at the time. And so really didn't know what was going on. But, taking that 6-month leave of absence from work really helped me get centered and understand what was most important in life. And as I think back to that time, I was, as my mother always said, Johnny, you're doing too much. So I was burning the candle at both ends. I was really focused heavily on my career, but I wasn't balancing the other areas that make for a well-rounded life. And so, what I like is, Gallup has a good book called Well-Being at Work, and they talk about these pillars of, career, social, physical, financial, and community, and the wheel of life. And I was way over-indexed on career, but really wasn't focused on my health and my, just doing all that I could to build myself up. And so, you can't pour from an empty cup. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was pouring everything that I had into my career and into others before I took care of myself. And so that attitude and understanding the importance of balance and then having the right mindset and a growth mindset, not viewing that setback as, just detrimental, but recognizing that, hey, it's building blocks. And so that's really what I learned at that point. So attitude is crucial.
Yeah, it is. And you said a lot there, and I can definitely relate. I guess when you are ambitious and you are striving to have an awesome outcome in life, everything in your mind is like, hey, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And if you're not careful, it is very easy to, neglect your friendships, neglect your family, neglect yourself in that regard, and just keep going. But you can only do that, for so long. I say me personally, in my schooling experience, I was in a dual engineering and MBA program. And in order to graduate within that 5-year time frame, you've got to do a summer of grad school classes, and you come right back, and then you got another year, and then you do another summer, and then you got a whole other year, starting from your junior year. And, mentally you're like, oh yeah, let's go, let's go, let's go. Everybody that is in the honors college is doing it, but that comes with a cost. I still had an internship. I still had to live when I was at home, support my family. But I had school as well, and there was no break. Summer break was not summer break anymore. It was school, And a lot of the younger people that I talk to, even though I'm young myself, but 18, 19, very early on in school, I'm like, hey, you got your entire life to work. Don't rush trying to finish school and do all these things, because in reality, it's not going to make that big of a difference. Most of the time, these companies want people with experience anyway. So take that time to do a co-op. Take the break in the summer, because one day you won't.
That's right.
Unless
without a doubt.
unless you can, which is definitely possible, unless you can figure out some other strategy to free up some of your time, you're going to work. And that's something that everybody's got to do. And your attitude when it comes to that is important. I know for me, I was very driven on wanting to be successful. So I ended up getting burned out, toward the end of that schooling period. And I had to take some time and relax and get my
Mm-hmm.
mind together and focus on the people around me as well. So I think that's an
That's right.
awesome pillar for sure. Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, and thanks for sharing that story. And and what's powerful there is when you recognize that things aren't happening to you, they're happening for you, then you start to then understand the proper context in terms of what's happening. And then you just learn from what's happening. And to your credit, cheers to you for slowing down and recognizing when you needed to take a pause so that you can then, finish strong. And it's no accident that you're here with, thriving on the corporate side, but then also, hosting this successful podcast as well. So kudos to you.
I appreciate that. And same to you. Taking that time
Mhm.
and getting your mind right is a big deal. I'm sometimes when we recognize that we have to stop, it can hurt a little bit. So I wanted to know if you
Yeah.
could comment
Mhm.
about that and how your mindset was from when you first took that break, and then how you were thinking when you got back.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a hit to the ego, I'll say, right? Because you're kind of known for this individual that's handling everything that life puts in front of you. And so then if something happens that's, opposite of what you would want to be known for, it can bruise your ego a bit, and it causes you to really reflect on where you are and how you're showing up in the world. And so, as long as you're not defined by that challenge, what I've learned is, speaking about it and speaking through it. If it can help others along the way, that's great. And, ultimately, don't worry about how others view you, worry about how you view yourself. And so if you know that, the type of individual you are and how you want to show up in the world, then continue to be that individual and, recognize that failure and setbacks, they're part of life. So
Right.
it's not about, I like this idea. I'm a big Rocky Balboa, Rocky fan, the boxer Rocky. And, and he says, it's not how hard you hit, it's how hard you get hit and keep moving forward. And so, when you keep that in mind, you're going to keep pushing past the challenges and the adversity. And you're going to actually expect those things, because if you have, high, big goals and big dreams, then those are the types of problems you're signing up for too. Big challenges, big problems.
Yeah.
So you're going to expect those setbacks, and you should expect those, and just push through them.
Most definitely, most definitely. So that's awesome. That's pillar number one. And so
Hmm.
pillar number two, C with the ACE, is connection, which is Ace of
Hmm.
Clubs. And you can comment on it, and then I'll also add another question. For someone in their 20s trying to build something different, how do you decide which relationships to lean into, and which ones to also kind of outgrow?
That's important. Connections to me, it's this is the relationship pillar. How you connect with yourself first and foremost, and how you connect with others, and then ultimately how you connect with the world. And when I was growing up, my hero, or one of my heroes, my grandfather, he served in World War II and was in the Navy. And when I was in college, he used to bring me groceries to school on the weekends, and just kind of kept me focused on schoolwork and being all that I could be. And he used to always send me letters as well. Every couple of weeks, he would send me a letter with an article that I thought that I should read. And in the letter, he always signed it off with "Choose your friends wisely." And I always thought, like, why is he, at this time I knew I had friends, and I'm like, why is he worried about my friends and who I'm choosing? But, as I think back on that time, he was really giving me the guidance that, those that are, where they say your average of the five people that you spend the most time with, and that is true. And so I'm a big believer in this idea of, frequencies and where you align yourself, and staying aligned with individuals that are high frequency. And, this idea, I'm from Maryland, and we call this crabs in a barrel, where any crab that's in a barrel could potentially get out of the barrel, but what tends to happen is once they get to the top, others are pulling them back in. And so I'm just a big believer in surrounding yourself with the right individuals. And so in the book, I talk about the idea of, I call it face, who is keeping you focused, who's holding you accountable, who's challenging you, and who's elevating you. And you can take inventory. Think about that to yourself. Who are those individuals that are helping keep you focused on your goals? who's holding you accountable each day. Ultimately, accountability starts with you, but you also want individuals that are going to hold you accountable to the type of individual you want to be. Who's challenging you? And I find that's the most important one is, are they challenging you? Or are they a chamber of echoes? Or anything you say, they're just gassing there, right? No, you want individuals who are going to challenge you and make sure that you're, again, being all that you can. And then ultimately, who's lifting you up? Who's celebrating you and who's helping you elevate and recognizing those important milestones along the way. So that's what I think about in terms of just relationships. And then I would say, doing your faith assessment and do that for who you are in that role to others as well. And who are you holding, focused, accountable, challenging, and elevating. So that's kind of what I think about.
Yeah. And that's a big deal. And I think when you're initially kind of growing up, there's a lot of stuff you don't consider. You just kind of live in. You're like, oh, they're cool. But as time progresses, especially I would say for me in college, you begin to see different mindsets, different people. You got some people around you that are ready to tackle the world head on like you are, and you got some people who really their priorities are not really there. And you have to pay attention to that and recognize that birds of a feather flock together. That is a true statement. I think a lot of times we're judgmental of, oh, well, they're doing this and they're doing that, but I don't do that. When you associate and hang around people that do certain things, even if you don't do it, you must think it's okay, right? At least that's what other people around you are going to perceive. And so with my podcast,
well, and what I always think about, there tends to be a focus where, hey, am I leaving individuals behind, or we've been friends for years? And I've got many friends. A number of the friends that I have today are friends that I met back in my college years, and we still are aligned and, hold each other accountable and, staying connected over text, or we do a, monthly kind of a luncheon type of a thing where we're again celebrating each other and being open with each other. But there also, you got to recognize there are people that you're going to leave behind, and if they're not where you're going, then you got to make that decision, and because ultimately you want to reach your full potential, and if you want to serve at your highest capacity, make sure you're surrounding yourself with individuals that are in that frequency, in that space. And so I think that's key. And so don't recognize as much like, hey, am I leaving this individual behind? They'll catch up if they feel that you're heading in the right direction, and if they're worthy. And if not, then you keep pushing forward toward your best and highest self. And those that you're supposed to be surrounded with will show up. And so I always believe, look, if you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. So challenge yourself to surround yourself with individuals who are also going to keep you going toward your best and not holding you back.
Yeah. And I'd like to make a connection with the connection piece to the whole framework.
Right, let's go, Malachi.
With your creating your deck, right? You can be strategic and intentional with the network that you create. When you look at WealthWise, I'm striving to surround myself with people who want to understand finances, who understand, the mindset behind money, and are striving to do good things in life. And so now I have that connection with you. And so that's where you can really kind of mold your cards. You don't just have to kind of just take what's given to you. You can go out there, you can make those opportunities. So I think that's a great pillar.
Go ahead, Malachi. You teaching the class, man. Your deck is stacked. That's what I like to see.
Yes, sir. Okay, so moving on to your third pillar, empowerment, or the Ace of Hearts. How do you help someone clarify the purpose or purposes, before they're making big career, or money decisions?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. When I think about empowerment, it's all around following your heart, and one of the challenges as it relates to following our heart, it's really, why are we doing what we're doing? And if we're not asking ourselves why we're doing what we're doing and finding out our why, then it's going to be tough, because any setback is going to keep us back. And so you really have to have a strong why. And so you have to have a strong purpose. So I like this idea. It comes to us from the island of Okinawa, Japan. It's called Ikigai. And Ikigai loosely translates to that what gets you up in the morning. And it came to us from Okinawa. Interesting enough, they're the largest concentration of centenarians. And those are individuals who have lived beyond 100 years of age. And so if that's your desire to live beyond 100 years of age, I would say follow your Ikigai. But the way to understand what your Ikigai is, it comes to us from 4 different pillars. It's doing what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. And so if you look at the center of those, what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for, in the center is your Ikigai. And that's your purpose. That's what's going to get you up in the morning and be excited about where you are and bring that energy to others so that you can energize them. And so that's what purpose is all about. And so not just doing something that you're good at, or not just doing something that you could make money at, that you can be paid for, but how do you bring about what the world needs? And how do you bring about what you love? And if you can do that, then you're going to have an advantage, because you're going to stay focused, because you know that that's what's bringing you energy and getting you up in the morning. So that's what I say about purpose. Follow your heart and do for others, serve others at your highest capacity.
Yeah, I think that is a big deal, especially with, I like to call it being a light. If you can figure out, what it is that you like to do in a way to help and serve others, that's one of the best ways that you can be a light. And for me, it was my podcast, but everybody, has different things. And I really like to encourage people in that regard, because I think sometimes people have the mindset that, oh, well, I have to go to school or I have to get a trade, and then these are the only things that I can do. But in reality, if you have a passion, then there's always a way you can make a business around it. There's always a way that you can monetize that. You literally got people flying on planes on a random Tuesday just to go get some food that they saw online, and millions of people watch, and they get paid to do it. So you can really do anything, but you have to believe it though. I think with the empowerment part, where I see a lot of people struggle is believing that they can actually pair that interest with making money or making a bigger impact. You have any thoughts on that?
Spot on. Spot on. What I would say, when I made the decision to leave corporate and launch my financial planning practice, I wrote a chapter in my book. It's probably my favorite chapter. It's called Bet on Yourself. That's the chapter. And too often we're afraid to bet on ourselves. And if you're not placing a bet on yourself, then, you're not living up to your fullest and your highest capacity. And so it does come down to belief. And so, you got to slow down enough to really hone in on what you believe in, understand what you believe in, and then, ground yourself in faith that things are going to work for your good. But, and then place your bet on yourself. And, so it's not accidental that, you're doing what you're doing, thriving in the corporate space, but then also, pivoting and, doing the good work here with the podcast, because, it is aligned to what you believe in. And, and then you mentioned social media. I'm a big believer in this idea of be a creator, not a consumer as well. And so, while we're on this podcast and we are certainly consuming information, be in a place where now that you're taking this information, how do you make it real in your life so that you can create what you desire in life, whether that's more freedom or whether that's more energy or whether that's more value to others and more meaning to others. But, be a creator, not a consumer. Believe in yourself and then bet on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big mindset shift to make too. I remember for years, I scroll on social media, scroll, laugh, send reels, send memes. And, once I switched over to doing my podcast, I realized wow, this social media is really like a supermarket. You go into Walmart, there's all these different products. Really, everybody is trying to sell you something, but you as the consumer, you are, you're just laughing. You're watching these videos. But when you kind of wake up, you realize, oh, well, social media is digital Walmart. You get on here, everybody's selling or advertising something, and so why can't you be a part of that? Anybody can do
I love that.
Anything.
I've never heard it. I've never heard it called that. I really love that analogy, and There are lanes in the supermarket. Like I can't go down, or I refuse to go down like the sweets, right? I'm on this journey this year. I'm doing no sweets. And, this is day 130 days of no sweets and drinking green juice every day. And,
Wow.
So I don't even go down the sweets aisle. And I don't go down the sweets aisle because, you don't even want that temptation, or I don't go down the snack aisle, right? Because
Right.
if you did, then, all that you don't need to have the unhealthy things are going to jump in your cart. So, that's a good analogy around social as well. Make sure that you're staying focused and consuming information that's going to help you get to where you desire to be. So, love that.
Yes, sir. And I saw a guy on TikTok. His name is KB Lame, but he does the videos where he doesn't say anything, and then he'll go like this, like when somebody's doing something that doesn't make any sense. And from going from being a consumer to a creator, he just recently sold a business for $975 million, all based on
Jeez.
all from getting on social media and just going with an idea that he had. And if that's not empowerment, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Well, Brandon Burchard, he's a good leader in this space. Has a good book called High Performance Habits. But what he talks about is we're not afraid to start. We're just afraid to start small. And so that individual that you mentioned, naturally he didn't start out with a $975 million business. He started out with an idea. He was consistent with his idea. He believed in his idea. You just talked about belief. He bet on himself, and then ultimately it came to fruition. So, really great example there.
Yeah. And so I think that leads us perfectly into strength, of the S in ACES, the Ace of Diamonds, and, being strong with that decision, and really coming with some force. So, how do you help someone, or how do you help young entrepreneurs reframe mistakes so that they don't become afraid to take smart risks, like launching a podcast or like launching a different business while they're working at the same time, taking that leap?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Winston Churchill said, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. And so recognizing that you're going to fall down, but you got to get back up. And that's really what strength is all about. It's just all about this idea of resilience. And it came to me, I was in a space in corporate where, I was going for a promotion in corporate. And, at the time, my team was top in the country. We were just coming back from celebrating on a President's Club trip. I think we were in the Cayman Islands. It was a beautiful time. And that next week came back in, and, was certain that I was going to be moving forward in a promotion, and was told that I was 98% of the way there for the promotion. And so didn't get the opportunity. And, at that time, it felt very much like a setback at that time. And it really forced me to start looking inward in terms of how I define success, and really putting success in my own terms. And then, I went down the path of getting certified as a Gallup strengths coach and helping other individuals identify their strengths. And so what I recognized at that early moment, at that time, that no, I wasn't 98% of the way there. I was actually 100%. I'm 100% grounded in who I am as a leader and grounded in my strengths. And so once I really came up with the idea and the concept of being grounded in who I am, then I started thinking about, now what do I really want in life? Because this promotion was a natural next level for me, but that door didn't open for a reason. So be open to this idea that, hey, not every door is going to open for you at the right time or at the time you want, but every door will open for you at the right time. And so that's the key. So I recognized that, yes, this was absolutely a setback because I had my eye on that role. But at the same time, what was the universe aligning to? Well, the universe aligned to me then getting certified as a coach, and then launching my coaching practice, Team ACES, and then ultimately writing my book. And then through the words of my book, I interviewed other ACES who were entrepreneurs and who were doing really big things in their life. That then gave me the confidence to bet on myself, step away from corporate, and then launch my financial planning practice. So again, we mentioned earlier, things aren't happening to you, they're happening for you. Yeah. So taking that adversity and the challenge, and then letting it build you up and then going forward toward what you really want in life. And so don't lose sight of what you want. Don't lose sight of your goals. Oprah Winfrey says most people, it's not that they don't know. It's not that they're not on track with their goals. Most people don't know what they want. So you got to understand what you want in life. So that's really
Right.
what the themes are, you know. So that's what strength is all about. Recognizing the strengths that you have, aligning those strengths to what's important to you, and then pushing forward in the face of any adversity and challenge you may face.
Right. Yeah. I like how you were able to recognize that and then kind of step out, in faith
Mm-hmm.
to do what you have done now. And I think a lot of times people can
Mm-hmm.
miss that opportunity. They don't get the opportunity, and then they kind of sulk in it, and then they never really step out, and do what they're meant to do. So I think that's definitely an awesome perspective to have. A lot of talks with my family, and from a faith based perspective, we have ideas of what we think should happen, but that might not be the idea or the plan that we're supposed to take. And being able to recognize that is important because it means that no, it's not a setback. No, you didn't do anything
That's right.
wrong. It's just you're supposed to go another route. And then now here, look at you now, boom, big, nice book in the back in the corner. I see that, and
That's
that,
right.
and
Product placement. That's it.
yeah, and sometimes people really don't, ever get a hold or catch a hold of that, and it just takes more time to get to where you really want it to be, So I think that's definitely an important skill to have. Could you comment on how even though you've done what you've done, it's not going to be a cakewalk? Because I think sometimes people
Mm.
also think, okay, well, I'm gonna pivot this way, and it ends up being really hard, and so they second guess or they doubt that they were
Mm.
supposed to do it, But
Mm. You gotta enjoy the journey and not the destination. And so recognize that it's almost like the journey is the destination. So you're just getting excited about the journey, and it really comes to growth mindset. I mean, you go in a growth versus a fixed mindset. When you have a growth mindset, you view setbacks as opportunities. You look at others to learn. You learn from others, and you keep pushing forward. And you recognize that anything that you want, you can develop within yourself to go after. And so, I think those are some of the things that I think about. I mean, it's not how you fail, but it's how you learn from those challenges and those mistakes, and then just get up, pick yourself
keep
back
going.
up. That's what I think about.
Keep going. Well, awesome. Thank you so much
Mm-hmm.
for really kind of deep diving into your framework. And now I want to kind of switch gears a little bit to asking about young professionals. So
Mm-hmm.
if you could give one piece of advice to someone in their early or late 20s who's ambitious, but maybe they're overwhelmed, maybe they're wanting to pivot, maybe they feel like they're not where they should be, what foundation, should they focus on before chasing, that next big win?
Mm. Yeah, foundation. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the ACES pillars of success, right? So, I would say probably hone in on that from a foundational perspective. But, I would just look at it in terms of really just taking inventory on what you
Mm,
want in life. And, a good friend of mine, Tokes, he always talks about this idea of, hey, everyone's beginning, middle, and end is different. And so I think that's key as well. So recognizing that, sometimes we compare ourselves to others and they may be at the end of their journey and I'm, in the beginning of in the journey. In real world, the way that it applies to me, I left the comfort and convenience of executive leadership for 25 years to now start the business that now I'm in the beginning stages of, right? And so it would be
mm-hmm.
a fool to me to compare myself to individuals that have had 10 or 20 years of experience in this business and expect that is going to, manifest itself overnight. Like I've got to recognize that now I've got to have a beginner's mindset. I've got to stay hungry. I've got to stay humble and I've got to stay grounded. And so just really keep your eyes on where you're going in life and stay focused. There's this good parable, and if you probably starting to learn about me, I love quotes, I love good stories, and I love parables. But there was this individual that, he was looking to become a master in martial arts. And so, he went to the master and he said, hey, if I am working every day, around the clock, on the goal, how long will it take me to be like you? And the master said, it's going to take 10 years. He said, 10 years? He said, it's going to take 10 years. And he said, well, what if I put all I have into it and I work so hard around the clock and, then how long will it take? And he said, well, it's going to take you 15 years. So how's that going to take 15 years? It's actually going to be longer. He said, all right, what if I devote all my time and attention on this and honing in my craft and, I eat, sleep, and breathe where I'm going, then how long will it take me to be just like you? And he said, 20 years. And he said, I got to ask you, I'm continuing to hone in on where I'm going and work harder, but it's taking me longer. And, the master said to him, that's because you have, one eye on the journey and one eye on the destination. And he said, no, you got to have two eyes on the journey. You got to stay focused on where you are and don't necessarily worry about where I am, but worry about where you are. And so that was a good lesson to me that, hey, don't necessarily focus on the individual that you're chasing in front of you. Just continue to focus on today and chase the best version of yourself today.
Yeah. It reminds me of the parable or the picture of the guy with the diamonds. You're whacking and you're whacking and you're looking at the wall and it's just not happening, but if you stop looking at the wall and just keep whacking, you'll probably hit the diamonds,
Yeah.
So
that's right. Exactly. Yeah. Love that.
Yes, sir.
Look, that's a good alignment because we talk about the strength, the ace of diamonds. So go ahead, Malachi, with your connections, man. I like it.
Yes, sir. And so, another question before we go into our Q&A. You already got some questions too. So,
oh, nice.
When you look back at your own journey, though, what do you wish you had personalized earlier, before life and responsibilities compounded? You're your husband and a father now. What do you wish you had done earlier? Some things.
Yeah, every night before bed, I tell my girls three things. Life begins at the end of your comfort zone. Whatever you are, be a good one. Never give up. And always remember, Daddy loves you. And front and center to that is life begins at the end of your comfort zone. And early on, I wish I truly would have understood what that meant, because as someone who's a high achiever and, done well and, in school and, high school and college, like when you're doing well, there's a tendency for you to want to stay safe because you start to identify yourself as a high achiever. But what that can also do is it can keep you safe and it can keep you from wanting to take risks because you may fear failure. And so what I really want to normalize, and I hope to normalize with my daughters, and what I would have done differently is normalizing failure, and it's okay to fail, right? One of the ACES that I talk about in my book, Sarah Blakely, who's the founder and CEO of Spanx, and she now has a new product that she launched called Sneaks. And when I talk about in her chapter, she talked about this book. It still remains one of my favorite books. It's by Dr. Wayne Dyer, and it's called How to Be a No Limit Person. And what she talks about is this idea of just, again, normalizing failure, so much so that her father, when she was young growing up, he used to ask her at the dinner table, not, hey, where did you do well or where did you succeed? But he would ask, where did you fail? Where did you fall down? And she would say, hey, maybe I tried out for cheerleading and, and I fell flat on my face, or I did something challenging, or, tried out for this play and didn't make it. And they would celebrate that and they would be encouraged by that because, again, it's not just about the great achievements and staying safe, but it's about when you fail and fall down, what are you learning from those times? Because that's getting you more aligned with where you want to go and what you want to be. So I would normalize failure more. It's okay to fail, and recognizing that, things often start with failure. Then they lead to learning. Then they lead to winning. You don't just start out by winning. A baby doesn't just walk into walking, right? Fail first, fail forward, you get up, you learn, and then you go forward. So I think that's what I would have told myself more and, embrace. And look, I always say the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. Second best time is today. So now that I learned that, that's what I'm doing today. And that's likely what kind of held me and keeps me grounded, in
Yeah.
this new entrepreneurial endeavor that I'm working.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's great advice. Even in my own life, just seeing and doing stuff. I kind of had that mindset too. As far as being a high achiever, you get comfortable doing good, and so when you see something that you might fail at, it's like, I really want to do it.
Right.
But you're,
Right.
you're you're
Right.
very right. Whenever I push beyond that and take that leap and be vulnerable, it's amazing. So I'll definitely keep that in mind, and make sure that I learn from it. And same thing, I want to encourage the audience definitely to learn from your failures. Something may not have gone how you wanted it to go. Maybe you started your business and now you kind of back to square one. That doesn't mean you stop. That means you look, you pause, assess what went wrong. Okay, now let's re-strategize and do better on this next go around. Can't give up.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm a big golfer, and in golf, I always say, people don't remember your bad shots; they remember, your score at the end of the round.
Yeah.
That's really what So it's not about the times you fell down or the times you hook or slice or whatever the case may be, hit it in the water, the woods, or whatever. It's how you rebounded and how you put it together to shoot the round that you need to you shoot.
Awesome. So with that being said, I'm going to open the floor to some questions from the audience. So you guys feel free to send in some questions. We have time for a few. I may not be able to get to all of them, but we're going to go ahead and start. The first question is, a big part of your work is, multi-generational planning and legacy. What do most families miss when they think about legacy, and how do you help them actually build something that lasts beyond a single generation?
Yeah, I would say, good question, and thanks for the questions. I would just say that it's really foundational. Most people miss just having a plan and sticking to the plan, and and recognizing. Often hear a lot of people say that, hey, I'm not ready to sit down and have a conversation with a professional. But again, I always say that now there's no better time than now than to have a conversation and really hone in on, hey, what are you looking to do today? Where are we today? Where are we looking to go tomorrow? And then what is the best path for us to get to where we desire to go? So, a plan's all about, those coordinates, the destination, right? Putting the destination into a GPS and then mapping out the most efficient route. So oftentimes individuals I just see they're just in the rat race, kind of heads down and not necessarily looking up as to where they're going. And then what happens is then you get to where you're going and you look back and say, well, shoot, I should have really done differently or worked some things differently. So that's really what it's all about, just having a plan and then making sure that you're aligned with the right actions to really build the future that you desire.
Yeah. Okay. Great question. Great answer. That's probably very true. Most people probably don't have a plan. So getting one is a big step.
Yep.
And so then another question is, you talk a lot about purpose first when helping people with money. How do you help someone move from financial stress to financial purpose? What's typically the number one mindset shift you see that unlocks real, potential?
Yeah, we often talk about, what are individuals, how were they raised around money and around their finances, and what lessons did they learn early on? And often that does shape where individuals are today. And, sometimes folks have a scarcity mindset, and that tends to keep them very small versus having an abundance mindset. Sometimes individuals have a fixed mindset where it's pretty black or white, right? They say, hey, I'm not good with money. And so if you feel you're not good with money, then you may never be good with money, right? And so it really just comes down to understanding what are some of those challenges or those limiting beliefs that may be holding you back. And it's probably not just holding you back in money, it's likely holding you back in life as well. And, and again, I think just having these types of conversations and being real with where we are is really what's needed. I don't think enough individuals have these types of conversations, and recognizing that, hey, there's no perfect place. It's just a starting place. It's just where you are today. And so just having the courage, I always, when I sit down with individuals, I commend them for taking the time to sit down and really address where they are and being vulnerable enough to share. there's never any judgment because it's all, where individuals are today. I always liken it to, being afraid to go to the doctor because you don't want the diagnosis, but got to go to the doctor because you got to know where you are and then recognize now where you want to go. It's not about where you start. It's how you finish. It's all about those are some of the things that I think about there.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Seems those are the two main questions that we have. And so with that being said, we're at the close of the episode. We got about 5 minutes left. And every guest that comes on, I ask them to share 5 wealth-wise tips. And so now is the time to do so. I'm ready. Let's see what we got.
Okay. All right. Well, look, I gotta ground some wealth-wise tips into the ACES pillars of success. So, very simply, attitude, ace of spades. Life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react. Connection, ace of clubs. That's all about your network, and your network determines your net worth. Empowerment. That's the ace of hearts. That's all about following your heart to your true destiny in life. And then strength. That's the ace of diamonds, and that's all about the idea of take the adversity like vitamins and let it build you up. So those will be 4. And then the 5th pillar, one of the call to action that I have in the book, I write poetry, and there's some poems that I've written that form the foundation as I transition to each element in the book, each of the pillars. But the poem that I wrote to close the book and the call to action to readers is this idea of being free. And so that poem says, all throughout the years, I've been comfortable with silence. Don't ruffle any feathers. Don't sleep on the violence. We were always taught that one day will be brighter. But what if I'm the one who holds on to the lighter? It's time to spark the flame that leads to the action. Change will result, and then comes the traction. That someday is now, that someone is we. Answer the call and set the world free. So that's what it's all about, Malachi. It's about setting yourself free, pursuing freedom, and then aligning your money with your meaning and creating the legacy that you desire for yourself and for your family. So, look, man, enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for having me on as a guest, and let's continue to elevate to our highest potential. Attitude, connection, empowerment, strength. Go Team ACES.
Yes, sir. Awesome. Thank you. That was a great wealth-wise tips. Can't wait to repost those. Y'all stay tuned for those. And as we get here to the close of the episode, just want to give a reminder. This is John Thompson III. He has his book. I have him tagged on my page. Go check out his page. Go check out his book. He's got physical copies. He's also got audio books, audible copies, which is what I check out. And, I want to thank you again for getting on. It's awesome to see a fellow engineer, fellow NSBE president, led your chapter all the way to the top, went to corporate America, and now, you're doing what, you're supposed to do. So thank you for hopping on. I greatly appreciate it. And again, audience, tap in with Mr. Thompson.
Let's go.
And with that being said, as always, this is the end of Mind Over Money episode. And master your money, secure your future, and see you guys next time. Wealthwise Live out.